Welcome to Vendetta Performance. Behind me is a 2013 Blurple Subaru WRX in for some general maintenance and upkeep. I'd like to make this video about really going through in detail all of the major maintenance intervals and preventative maintenance mods you can do on this platform in order to ensure that you don't blow your shit up. I think the heat is making my employees a bit loopy and also slightly homosexual. I don't know what to do about that. Anyways, the major items for any EJ series WRX. If you follow the recommended Subaru service schedule, they will likely have you do your oil changes between 5,000 and 7,000 miles. I am here today to tell you that you should not do that. And instead, if you are on 91 pump gas, you should be changing your oil every 3,000 to 4,000 miles. And if you are on E85, you should be doing about every 2,500 miles. The reason being, I can tell when we disassemble a Subaru engine if they've been following the extended service interval from Subaru or if they've been more rigorous and done these oil changes sooner. The biggest sign for me is the buildup on the valve covers, buildup around the oil control ring on the pistons, and overall just the relative health of the engine. So if you don't change your oil, trust me, your mechanic knows. That's the number one big thing. The other item is Subarus are known for burning oil. The number of times that we have cars come in that are below the recommended oil service change interval, so they're not due yet, but we pull the dipstick and there's no oil on the dipstick whatsoever, is ridiculously common. I always tell people, check your oil every other time you get gas or at least once a month to verify that you are at least at the middle mark on the dipstick. You can go all the way to the full mark, but at least at the middle. I cannot count how many times I have rebuilt Subaru engines because they've just been run low on oil. There's nothing else wrong with them. They just run them out of oil and then they spin a main bearing or a rod bearing. So that is by far the number one thing, the bare minimum you should do. Second off is oil type. On the EJ series engines, we run the Motul 8100 5W40. If you are built engine or you are running E85, it's not a bad idea to swap over the 10W40 and then again, shorten your oil change intervals. The reason we shorten them on E85 is because we spray 30% more fuel into the cylinder. It tends to fuel wash more and then contaminate the engine oil faster. So the downside of E85 is although you make more power, you have to do a bit more maintenance to keep the thing happy. So by far, those are the two biggest things on this platform. So the other items here, spark plugs. Every 60K on an EJ, you're doing spark plugs and you're running the OEM Iridium NGKs. They're the high ignitability spark plug. I think it's 9703. You run the OEM spark plug 60K. If you are modified, making extreme amounts of horsepower or a lot of boost, that interval will be shortened dramatically. That's just part of the game. You make power, more maintenance. The other major item on these cars is on the EJ series that are timing belt driven is the timing belt itself. Subaru will tell you around 90,000 is the time to replace it. Although that is correct, I like to add in a time factor because a lot of these WRXs and STIs do not get driven as frequently as a regular commuter car. So if the belt is either at 90,000 miles or is about 10 years old, it's time to replace it. When we do the timing belt services, we do the water pump with it and all of the idlers and everything else associated with it. The water pump is timing belt driven on this platform, so it really doesn't make any sense to not do it while you're there. If you don't do the belt, you will see me eventually for a snap timing belt and we'll be pulling the engine out and you'll be spending approximately $5,000 or $6,000 to get the car running again. So it's better off to spend the $1,200-ish for us to do the timing belt on time versus waiting and spending more money. On every single WRX or EJ, up until 2015 on the WRXs when they went to electronic power steering, one of the big items we see, especially on the 2015 plus STIs, is power steering rack failures. One of the most overlooked fluids in your car is the power steering fluid. It runs generic ATF, and I don't know if you can tell, we just changed this last year. So that's actually red. It's actually good. We replaced the power steering rack on this car partially because the seals had failed, but I have a feeling a lot of these cars that have power steering rack failures are due to this power steering fluid being contaminated and never changed. Realistically, 30 to 50,000 miles, check it. If it's no longer bright red, because this takes automatic transmission fluid, Dextron 3 or 4. If it's not red, you can do two things. You can one, pop a line on the bottom of the rack and drain it out, or you can siphon this out and refill it and continuously do that until finally it turns tread. But this is one of the major things that I see that nobody ever services. And they come in with the rack leaking or squealing or the pump's dead, and it's because more than likely the power steering fluid's been contaminated for quite some time and has damaged the internal seals in the pump or the seals in the rack. These Subaru power steering racks, especially the 2015 Plus STIs, are around $1,200, if not more, $1,200 to $1,700, give or take. So it's very important that you do that. The other item I've got for you, every 5 years, change a coolant. I don't really have a mileage interval on the coolant per se, but at minimum every 5 years, change the coolant in the car and run the OEM Subaru Blue. So the Subaru Blue is compatible with green, but the blue offers a longer service life for the vehicle. So initial complaints on this particular Blurple WRX was rough starts in the morning, some extra noise in the drivetrain. Customer noted it's a little rough. This car has 98,589 miles, so we're basically at 100K. And one of the other major items on this platform, and really any car in general, is a good rule of thumb is when you get to around 100,000 miles, probably time to start thinking about doing struts and shocks. There's probably some other minor stuff like end links that are due too, or the lower ball joints on Subarus. In this particular instance, the issue we were having was some low speed clunk. Still drove straight, but some low speed clunks, and just overall they noted the car was riding just a little bit rougher than it used to. We're going to try and recreate that. We have you mic'd up in the engine bay right now, and this car ironically had new front struts put in it about 2 years ago. I think it was a used car dealer, so they didn't use a genuine product. They didn't use a genuine Subaru strut, or at least from what I can tell, a reputable aftermarket brand, because they do exist. I think this was like the cheapest quick strut, which is loaded, which is the spring, the strut, and everything combined into one. I think they just threw the easiest ones and the cheapest ones they could find in, and it made it 20,000 miles, probably somewhere around there, 10 to 20,000 miles, and they're starting to make a bit more noise than we like. So hopefully the microphone will pick this up as I try to intentionally make the noise. But regardless, at 100K, you are basically ready to start considering doing struts. It's really a case-by-case basis. What I've noticed on the Subarus, especially the older gens with the McPherson style strut, is that they do not tend to leak. They tend to just get a little bouncy, if that makes sense. A little, just a little soft. And I don't know if you can hear that. We're gonna flip back, we're gonna do one more loop, and I'm gonna shut up, and I'll let you guys listen to it. Oh, I can hear it. Yeah. We have the microphone mic'd up right on the top of the left strut tower there, so I'm sure it's really loud on the microphone. On these Subarus, you're looking at three things for the most part. The lower ball joint fails or gets loose, or the boots typically tear before the ball joint really goes. You're looking at the front struts, either the top hats or the mounting point for the strut, or you also can have the lower control arm bushing, the rear bushing and the lower control arm tear and start to make noise as well. Usually 150K is when I start seeing that. Normally it's the really high mileage cars, 150, 160,000 miles, where I really start seeing the issues with the ball joints and the lower control arms themselves. We're not quite there with this year or with the mileage on this thing, but we are, you know, they're on their way. Yes, stock Subaru boost life, man. It is impressive what just some minor mods and tuning does for these cars. All right, let's see if we can hear this. City of Grain Valley. You could fix part of your roads here, that'd be nice. But actually, at the same time, it helps me diagnose suspension noises, so. Yeah, it's loud. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I serviced this car about a year ago. They had just bought it. They had just gotten it for their son. It didn't make this noise back then. So in a year's worth of driving on cheap struts, we get that lovely noise. And to be fair, it still drives straight. It doesn't like jerk the steering wheel around when you hit a bump or anything like that. But they opted to go ahead and just have it done, because even though at this point it's not necessarily inherently a safety risk, I only get to see this car once a year. So they said, let's just go ahead and do it now, so it can't become a serious safety problem later down the road. So that's what we're doing. my baffled oil pans we sell. This one's used. I took it off a running cart. Anyways, I call it the big three. We have our general maintenance items, timing belt, spark plugs, coolant, all that, engine oil changes, yada yada. But there are what I call the big three that I sell. And the big three is essentially the aftermarket modifications you can do to this platform to help increase the overall longevity of the car. I'm not saying it will never fail on you, but it does help. One of the big three is an increased capacity and baffled oil pan. There are two companies that make them that I would have used in the past. One of them, of course, is our friends over at IAG. We are an IAG silver dealer, so if you want one of these and you're local, call me, I can get you one. Anyways, the IAG pan does two things. One, it holds a 6-quart oil capacity. So it's a direct bolt-in to any EJ from 2002 to 21 or 22 when they stopped production. So this is a direct bolt-in application. The nice thing is on this, you have your internal baffling. It's a 6-quart capacity. The big thing on Subarus is extended high G turns, as in all-wheel drive donuts, track days, autocross. They have a problem where the oil will slosh to one side, and the oil pickup that sits in the center of this pan here will start to suck up air, and you'll start to lose oil pressure because of it. So the baffling helps that, and the extra capacity, not only does it help a little bit with oil temp, but also the extra capacity helps keep the pickup submerged when you're in high G turns or when you're doing all drive burnouts like a freaking hooligan. So this is one item that I always recommend for a customer who's bought an STI, intends to keep it for a very long time, and wants to be proactive about keeping the car together. So this pan with the pickup that comes with it is a solid option. The other item to this, which I don't have here, is the oil pickup. The factory oil pickups are essentially braze welded together, and I've seen more than a few where the welds on the factory pickup will crack. And when the welds crack on the factory pickup, it slowly starves the car of oil. It might not be enough to throw the oil light on the dashboard, but it will slowly starve the engine of oil, leading to a rod bearing failure, and then a $10,000 to $12,000 repair bill for me to get it back together. It's so important that every single engine build that we do here, regardless if the car is completely stock or not, at minimum, I am putting in an upgraded oil pickup in the car. It can be a stock oil pan, that's fine, but it has to have an upgraded oil pickup. I have not built a car with a stock pickup in I think 10 years. So that's how critical it is to have that done. There is another company that makes oil pans for this car. The company's called Killer B. Now, Killer B makes some awesome headers. They have some really amazing products, but I have found one flaw with the Killer B pans that continuously keeps popping up, and that is in their design, the internal baffling, which is a bolt-in style on the IAG, which by the way has two functions. One, if the car does inevitably blow up and have a bearing failure, I can pull these screws out, pull the baffle out, clean out the entire pan and all the baffling and reuse it. Now, the Killer B, instead of having a bolt-in style, is a weld-in style. The problem that I've seen with those on multiple occasions is the welds will crack in the pan from age, heat cycles, all of the above. And when the welds crack, the pieces of the baffling, this steel here in this pan, not this one, but a Killer B pan, will break off into chunks. And I've seen more than one car where that chunk breaks off. There's no way to tell because this thing is bolted to the underside of the car. You can't really see through the oil drain, but the weld cracks, a chunk of this aluminum baffling breaks and then falls to the bottom of the pan. The car starts up, the oil pickup begins to suck oil in, and like a vacuum, it sucks that steel plate that's floating in the bottom of the pan into the pickup, blocks the oil flow, and blows the thing up. I've seen it more than once. Now, I believe Killer B updated their design, thicker plate material, to kind of address that, but in my opinion, the design is inherently flawed because it is permanently TIG welded to the side of the pan, versus this one, at least it's bolted, so it gives it a little bit more room to flex and all that. So in my opinion, if you're gonna do an upgraded pan, get the IAG one, because I have seen a few motors blow up because of the Killer B's breaking. Y'all might hate me in the comments for that one, but it's cold hard truth. Look it up on Google. There's plenty of posts on Facebook and on the internet about it happening. So that's why we run the IAG. Besides the IAG oil pan and the air oil separator, which I'm about to show you on another car, there is one final item to the Subaru EJ trifecta, and that is tuning. Ironically, I see more cars with responsible tuning. Responsible tuning. I have more success with cars that are pro-tuned than I am with ones that are on the factory tuning. To be fair, the details are better left to my tuning partner, Graham, especially on the 08 Plus. STIs. Their fuel system routing's a bit weird, and in the factory tune, it leans the car out. The air-fuel ratio in the tune is a little bit leaner than what we like to see, and that can lead to detonation or feedback knock if you're on an access port. So I see more cars last longer with tuning that is responsible, and let me point out responsible. 1, we have a solid AFR. 2, we have responsible timing. And 3, especially on the WRXs, but any EJ, if your tune, if it's not a really smooth transition from consumer driving, regular driving into wide open throttle and the boost through the torque curve and the timing curve, that extra load, the sudden load on the bearing surface of the rod bearing is detrimental to it. So that's why I always say run a good oil, but also it shouldn't all hammer in at once. It's better to kind of smoothly transition into full power. And I know it won't feel as fast, but it will make the same horsepower number and torque number, but it doesn't feel as punchy. But doing that really saves the mains and the rods. Now on built motor applications, that's a bit of a different story running race bearings, but on a factory EJ with the factory bearings, we always like to be a little nice on the torque curve because it does actually make a noticeable difference on the wear of the main bearing and rod bearing. Pro tuning, do that. Shout out Graham. As part of the trifecta, we have what's called an air oil separator. There are 2 air oil separators on the market that I would recommend. Radium makes one and IAG makes another one. As a preference, I kind of like the IAG more for the EJs. Maybe it's because I've just done so many more of them, but you cannot go wrong with either one of these. So what's the difference between an AOS and a catch can? An air oil separator, not only does it pull the oil droplets out of the PCV system, but it also redirects it back into the engine block. So that means that there is essentially, quote unquote, no maintenance involved. On the radium here, air will go in and then they'll have a drain, and the drain will go back into the block there. So 2 things. There is the IAG one, which has the coolant ports on the bottom here. I have this upside down, the bottom. This cycles engine coolant through this can with the baffling inside. And what that does is it helps with water evaporation, because not only do you get oil residue in the PCV system, but you can also get water. So the hot coolant operating temp, 190 to 210 degrees Fahrenheit, is running through this can, and it helps evaporate that water off instead of having it go into the oil and get that really milky, sludgy mess on the top of your oil cap. The radium also has coolant pass-throughs, but essentially you can't go wrong with either one. They are both quote unquote plug and play. If your car is completely stock, they come with everything you need. Again, it's part of the big 3 that we like to do here. Main reason we like to run these catch cans is because the factory PCV aerated oil, misty oil, the misted oil that sits in the PCV lines gets redirected back into the turbo inlet, which is bad for 2 things. 1, it makes all of the inside of your intercooler couplers, the intercooler, the turbo inlet coated in oil, but additionally, that oil essentially makes its way through the intake manifold and into the combustion chamber when you're running, and oil is actually responsible for reducing the octane level of the fuel. So although I don't know the science behind how much, but these products do 2 things. They keep the intercore piping, the turbo inlet, and the intake manifold cleaner of engine oil from the PCV system. They also can help reduce the chance that you have feedback knock or pre-detonation because you are not getting the engine oil consumed by the engine. Check this out, bro. The radium actually has a dipstick on it, but you have your baffle plate inside here is essentially a steel wool material. You can't really tell, but in between the mesh grating there's a steel wool, and you have another baffle plate on the bottom. And on the radium, even though this is labeled as an air oil separator, they still have a dipstick port here. So you can check the oil level, see if the can is full or not, which is a bit strange. I'm actually kind of curious. I want to look at Radium's documentation because in theory, this can should drain back into the engine. So I'm not sure why you would even need one of these. I don't know. Radium, if you're there, tell me why. Unless this is just a generic top piece and you did some other witchcraft to not need it.
Install your catch can before you put a supercharger on. Steven said I looked very submissive and breathable.
You don't get a mic today. Hey, I don't want to be on your stupid YouTube project.
What does that mean?
Sign language. I just finger spelled stupid. I needed a mic. Today, we're installing shocks and struts on a Blurple WRX.
Beautiful. That is the loudest lift ever. Beautiful OEM Subaru parts. Beautiful. These were looking a wee bit crusty. You can already see some of the shortcuts they do to make these cheaper compared to the factory ones. So you see that weld there? This is the OEM replacement. Welded there and also welded all the way around the top there. That's the OEM Subaru. And you also see it has a metal end cap there, right there, metal. The aftermarket one, welded on the bottom and a kind of chintzy weld at the top there. And you see there's no weld across that. It is weld on the bottom, but it also has this plastic dust cover cap here. Kind of the sneaky ways that they do this to save a bit of money on the aftermarket.
WD-40 is not a lubricant. It does not loosen rusty parts. All right, let's do the other side. Now I'm putting in these big old bolts. And I'm gonna leave them loose. Gets fired. Boom. Hand tight is the perfect tightness for everything. That way you don't over torque it. Now for the rears. Now to finish the job. May or may not have put the car a little too high. Everyone that's watching, if this car falls to the ground and the struts fail, I blame Daniel. He did the whole job. I did none of it. I'm just test driving it. So we have the mic in the same spot we did when we first diagged this and heard that it needed a front strut. We're gonna see if the new one is gonna be better. I hate this clutch. I hate all stock Subaru clutches. They're so light and they just go to the ground. Every time you shift, you can hear my foot hit the ground. So far, so good. We're not hitting any big bumps yet. We got some good stuff on this road. This road sucks. It definitely rides a whole lot better. Before, I did not like the way it rode. 1, it drives so much better.
Does it really?
2, it still clunks.
Oh, damn it.
It's not like it anymore. It's like, it actually drives good. It's just the clunk is still there. I think it's the end link. If I'm on the sway bar and I can do this, I can feel it.
Call me crazy, I can already tell different. We haven't even left yet. Oh, it's so much better.
I know, right?
It's so much better.
It's not like it's kicking you in the ass every time you hit a bump.
That is a world of difference. Oh my God. I know people over the internet can't tell the difference, but holy shit, it is so much better to drive. Yep. I can't get mine to do it on this end. It looks like it could use some new sway bushings too.
Quite the dirty little girl. It literally left a stain on the ground. This car came in with a coolant leak, and if you look on this side, like the coolant crossover is, there's a bunch of coolant. Same on the other side where the O-rings are. So took off the intake manifold. We're doing the seals on it as well. We did a new PCV line here because these always get super hard and suck. So now we're basically on the install portion. I gotta put these seals back in, and then the manifold goes back on. Oh yeah. All right, go ahead and start it for me. So these suck. They have to go in like so, but it also like doesn't fit. Hopefully it stays. This one's all about strategy. Oh, hey, oh, hey. So then you want to sit here with the impact at full kill until it freely spins. Turbo going in. It's a single turbo. Can you not see the single turbo here? Idiot. Stay behind the camera. Mechanic. Alrighty, let's put coolant in it.
That door gets heavier every day.
You have a great rest of your evening there, bud.
What's funny is this car drives totally fine if you drive it like a grandma. Oil change, tire rotation, we fixed a mud flap for them because they always seem to break or fall off. Multi-point, and then complaint of hesitation or stumble at around 5,200 RPM under wide open throttle. Now I drove it, it does exist, but it's not just at 5,200, it does it around 4,200, 45, and then 52. It does it 2 or 3 times. And it's not like a full-blown misfire or anything like that. Like the roughness monitors on the scan tool show 0, and it drives normally otherwise. Like we're just cruising around right now, but it's only in wide open throttle. This thing had an engine put in it by another shop like 5,000 or 6,000 miles ago. And so he just wanted me to take a peek and, you know, have my thoughts on it. I do know it is running the latest Subaru ROM on the ECU, so it's a factory tune, but it doesn't even like chop. It doesn't misfire. It just feels like the car is either A, pulling timing, or B, it's cutting boost out when you're in it. It's 90 something degrees outside today, so you're more likely to see that. Now he runs 93 octane in it, so it should help, but it's just a wee bit choppy. So when we drive normally, like you'd have no idea there's really anything wrong. But if I downshift here and a wee bit of gas, we're at 3 grand. It's not dramatic, right? It's not like the car is broken. It doesn't feel smooth. Like it feels like the car is either, it's again pulling timing, or there's something else going on. Everything else looks great on it. I don't really have any complaints mechanically with the other shop that did the install and everything, but I did go ahead and just clean the mass airflow sensor. We checked fuel trims, and we checked the AVCS, the variable valve timing, to make sure that both left and right bank were doing what they're supposed to, and they were. So we know we have good fuel, we know we have good fuel trims, we know we have a good mass airflow in it, and we know our oxygen sensors are good. We don't have any air leaks. It doesn't give us the classic air leak issue where the car will die on you when you come to a stop, and that's also confirmed because our fuel trims are within 10% of each other long and short term. So situations like this, the car is bone stock. I think some people wouldn't really even notice. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not so bad that, like, you know, there's something obviously wrong. So what I'm going to tell them, I know it's a video about maintenance, but sometimes there are situations where It's not necessarily an inherent issue with the car, but it's something that we can improve on the aftermarket side. And that's where we'll suggest to him, let's try and tune the thing, because the car is completely stock. It has a stock intake, stock exhaust. Like, there's not a single aftermarket part on this car. So if we can throw an access port and a Pro Tune at it and really smooth out the power band, gain a little bit of power at the same time, that's a pretty good win. Because as of right now, the wide open throttle is a bit funny when you're really in it. And it has never thrown a check engine code the entire time since the engine was put in it. So hit it again. It's really not that bad, but it's just enough. I'd understand, like, it feels like the car, there's something wrong with it, but we boost fine. We hit peak of 22 PSI of boost. And the way the Subarus do it on these FAs, the boost level is variable depending on the ambient weather conditions outside. So it looks at air temperature and all the elevation, everything else, to try and get it to basically hit its whatever target boost it sets. So let's throw an access port on and a Pro Tune and really clean up the wide open throttle aspect of it. And that'll also help with the weird rev hang that these things do. So this is a good example where we do all the maintenance on it, but if we can make the driving experience just a wee bit better, you know, and address his concern at the same time, that's a win. Nothing a little bit of access port tuning wouldn't take care of, I don't think. And the other thing is, we know it's not misfiring, because when you have a misfire on these cars, it's pretty dramatic. I don't think it's like an ignition coil, because it doesn't feel like we hit a brick wall. It just has a little bit of a surge to it. On that, I deem this vehicle ready. Another one out the door. If you have an automatic car, CVT, Subaru will probably tell you to do the fluid every 60 to 100K, depending on which dealer you go to. I do not believe that at all. On the CVTs, I recommend every 30,000 miles we do a service on it. The service, typically for the CVTs, we're doing an entire fluid exchange. And then on the manual cars, we're doing the manual transmission fluid and the differential fluid. Now, I like to do them at 60K, at least from all the service tables I've seen from Subaru. There is not a set service there, but I recommend it at 60K. If you drive the car extremely hard, or if you off-road it a lot, where you get the diffs or the transmission hot, I would tell you let's shorten that interval down a little bit, but that's kind of TBD. It depends on the car. But at minimum, every 60K, you should be servicing the manual transmissions. And at 60K, every time we do one, it is definitely due, especially the differentials and the rear differentials. And we run the Motul Gear 300. It's the 75W 90. You can run what you want, but we've had really good success with that fluid. It's not as cheap as some of the other options out there, but again, kind of like we talked about the Motul engine oil for the 5W40, that's what I would recommend for the gearboxes. Now, if you're an automatic with a CVT, you actually have two different transmission fluids. You have the center differential fluid or the front differential fluid, and then you have the automatic transmission fluid or the CVT fluid. Your CVT should still take 75W90. It has just a different fill port for it. So make sure you do both of those. I've seen a couple cars where people do transmission swaps on them on the autos, and they forget to put gear oil in it. They put the CVT fluid in it, but they forget to put gear oil in it. And the car only makes it a couple hundred miles, and then the front diff explodes because they forgot to put gear oil in it. Food for thought on that one. Your early gen non-turbo Subarus were pretty bad about popping the head gaskets. That's why you see all the memes on the internet about, oh, head gasket problem, Subaru. They're just beating a dead horse. That hasn't been a major issue for a very long time. It got to a point where the non-turbo Subarus, they didn't use a multi-layer steel head gasket for a long time. It's not as common anymore because all those cars usually now, the early gen models, have 10 bajillion miles on them. But if we do a head gasket job on one of those, we stick the STI head gaskets on them. They're a nice multi-layer steel. As long as you don't overheat the crap out of them, they last. So typically with head work, I have yet to see a multi-layer steel STI style gasket come back from a job like that. So that's kind of been the go-to fix for a while now. On your FA20s, around 100K, you're gonna start seeing the spark plug tube seals leak. So the valve cover gaskets themselves on the outside won't leak, but at 60 or 80K or whenever you do a spark plug change, you pull the spark plug out to do the change and you notice it's completely covered in oil. The inner tube seals go first, always. It's never the outer seals that go first. So they look perfect until you do that. Pretty common. They're not terrible to do. Home gamers will probably find it annoying simply because they are on the sides of the engine, right? So you have to work, it's not like an inline 4-cylinder where you can do everything up top, or all the valve cover stuff is shoved on the side of the engine. 120 to 150K on a FA engine, you're gonna start seeing some external oil leaks. The cam carriers are probably the biggest one, the most cost prohibitive one to do. That's an engine out repair. We're basically pulling the whole engine, getting the camshafts, the cam gears off, undoing the timing, pulling the front cover, and then resealing the cam carriers. That's a pretty common one. The front covers will start to leak too. The problem with the FAs is they're like 90% silicone. There's not a whole lot of actual freaking gaskets on that engine. So a lot of times, like the front cover is a massive chunk, is all RTV silicone. So there's a lot of times where there's no longer a proper gasket. It's the RTV. And so after 10 years of time or 100,000, 150,000 miles, you'll start to notice all of those RTV gasket areas leak. So that's front cover, cam carriers, the upper oil pan gasket, that's all RTV, about it. I've seen a couple times on the FAs where the upper oil pan O-rings fail and it mixes coolant and oil. So the car milkshakes like it needs a head gasket, but it's actually just the O-rings in the upper oil pan. It's nice, not a head gasket, but there's still a lot of work there to get that in and out. So the 86s and the BRZs, when the FA24 came out, had an issue with too much silicone in the assembly line. There was a lot of reports that, you know, these brand new cars with, you know, sub 10, 15,000 miles on them, the pickup is more than halfway clogged with RTV silicone. That hasn't been as much a problem from what I can tell after the first model year production. I think there was a production design change, at least on how much silicone they used in those engines, but that shows you how much silicone is actually used to seal those FA20s and FA24s to the point where the manufacturer is having problems with them clogging the oil pickups. The sad part about that is a lot of these cars, we've done a couple of them within the first 1,000 miles and they've been partially blocked. But think of the number of cars that have never had that service done, right? They've never checked. The only way you can check is to pull the oil pan and look up at the oil pickup tube. And that's a slow death. That's not an immediate death. So there's no mileage per se of how long you'll get with a clogged pickup. It depends on each car. Material blocking the oil pickup is a guaranteed surefire way to slowly starve the thing of oil and shorten the overall life of the bearings in it. So I think as time goes on, I'm going to see more of those where they're relatively low mileage, but out of warranty just due to age. And we find the oil pickups are half clogged with RTV silicone. I've had a couple engines already, a couple FAs that are in the 20, 30,000 mile mark that have either gotten out of warranty over time or they've been in some way totaled through an accident, but they buy them back, salvage title, and they blow up. So it does happen. The FA24s do have oiling issues on long, hard cornering. There's some aftermarket stuff being developed for that, but I don't have a solid 100% fix for it. To be fair, the only time I really see that, or I've seen data on that, is when you are on a proper track, going hard around a corner on a track for a long, extended period of time around a corner. A lot of the guys that race these, like the Blue BRZ over there, he runs about a quart and a half over full to try and avoid that from happening. Whether or not that's the surefire way to make sure that doesn't happen, can't tell you for sure. I don't have the science behind that, but that's pretty common to see. As far as the other accessory systems go, these cars are pretty stout. I don't see a lot of many common failures. The one thing I will tell you is I have a perfect example of older generation, higher mileage problem, and that's with the AC system. The most common leak you will find on a Subaru with AC is two things. Either one, the hose crimps here will deteriorate. This is kind of a good example. This hose is original. It's an 07 STI. So we're, what, 18 years old? The hose crimps fail over here. A lot of times when shops do the engine R&Rs, they leave the system filled and just pull the AC compressor over and bend the line, but you'll fail crimp here. Or the other more common thing is the O-ring here that goes from this hard line to the AC compressor will fail, and you'll start to see a buildup around here. I mean, you can kind of see that if you that goop there. I already replaced the O-rings on this one, but that is a really common leak point there. And then also this crimp failing here. This hose, in all reality, I should probably replace. It's starting to show the classic characteristic of that line failing. So one day it won't just completely explode, but you'll lose all the freon in the system and your leak might be hard to find, but it is right there. These lines you can get aftermarket for a relatively cheap price. And honestly, I think they're just as good as the OE ones. At least from my experience, it doesn't make sense to buy some of the OEM Subaru stuff sometimes. And to be fair, this is talking about, you know, stock Subarus for the most part. Like a lot of these items will help the stock guys as well as the modified ones. Now we can do a whole nother video on failures I see on modified Subarus. It's a lot more extensive than this one and usually a lot more expensive, but overall that's kind of the big maintenance items that we see. And of course, when you go after aftermarket anything, if you're putting more power or more torque or more force through something, you will have more common pattern failures. For example, this car is a perfect example. It has a stage 2 clutch in it from what we can tell. The clutch master cylinder broke on this car out of nowhere. Pedal went to the floor, lost all the fluid out of the master cylinder for the clutch master, and it leaked out the bottom seal. I've seen it multiple times, and every single time it's happened, it's been on a car with an upgraded clutch on it. I think you're just putting more force into the pedal, and there's just greater pressure overall from the clutch master cylinder and then the clutch slave cylinder. Same thing goes on the 15 plus WRXs. I see multiple times where aftermarket clutches break the clutch forks. Fork actually fails where the pivot ball and the fork meet, and it causes a really rough pedal. And a lot of times when that happens, it destroys the front snout of the transmission where the throwout bearing rides. They make sleeve kits to kind of doctor that and fix it, and then custom throwout bearings with a larger diameter to, you know, accommodate that billet sleeve they stick on there. But again, you start getting into the rabbit hole of modified Subarus, and you see more pattern failures over time just because of the aftermarket parts added to them.
This isn't mine, I can't throw it. Hope you guys like this video. Please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe and turn on your notifications. And we will see you guys next time. Now please, whatever you do, blow up your Subarus so that we can work on them. I need a raise.